held an emergency meeting today, passing several measures to help prevent revenue from New York City OTB from leaving the state. John Sabini is the chairman of the State Racing and Wagering Board, and he is joining me in the studio this evening. Thanks very much for being here.
Thank you, Liv.
So basically, this is a twofold effort that you are doing after losing the handle from New York City OTB as of midnight last night to try and keep people's gambling cash in New York by gambling online, partially, and what else?
Well, they could always gamble online, or at least for the last few years, but what we did today, and admittedly it's a small measure in the scope of the great loss of New York City OTB, but allows people to establish online accounts easier. Before, you had to go to an actual window at a bricks and mortar location with cash and ID and say, I'd like to set up an account. And it wasn't the most user-friendly system that was designed to have a lot of security. Times have changed. We don't want to lose the handle for two reasons. Number one, racing is the most integrated business in New York State, probably. Most of the racing in New York State are New York bred, so it goes right from the farm all the way to the OTB worker in terms of income and jobs. In a time where we're outsourcing jobs to all kinds of places around the world, this is a New York industry. And so we want to keep the handle here, because if people bet on offshores, the industry sees none of it. It's like buying a bootleg tape off the street. There's no money for production.
But you're not going to recoup $840 million.
No, we're not. As I said, it's a small measure.
Right.
But we're trying to do it better. The other bad thing that could happen if people go to offshores or to their local corner barbershop or whatever, is that the surety of getting paid. People who are licensed by us, you're going to get paid. Your money's not going to be lost. You're not dealing with a guy with a computer in Belize. It's there for your taking.
Oh, the corner barbershop, you mean a bookie, right? That's what you're talking about. Okay. So the thing is then, the New York City OTB, this actually is pretty amazing. Nearly 40% of their handle was the total racing handle of $2.2 billion. That's a huge hit.
As I said yesterday, you can drop a pebble in a pond, it causes ripples. This is dropping a boulder in a pond.
Okay.
And what we did today really is a small step, but it's an important one in that, A, we acted fast, and we wanted to make sure we got emergency rules to the Secretary of State before post-time at Aqueduct today. And number two, the idea is we've now put our stakeholders on notice that we're willing to work with them to make things better under the rules that the legislature and guidelines have set for us. So we're telling people to think outside the box, react quickly, market yourself, because in the brave new world, people have got to learn to sort of compete for the entertainment dollar.
Okay, you also approved a NYRA application for a special NYRA rewards promotion that will double incentive points. This is, like you're saying, just trying to get people into the door. The thing is that we had Larry Schwartz today suggesting that it's possible that the Saratoga meet won't be held because of this.
Well, we hope that's not the case. The NYRA board is meeting as we speak now. And people don't seem to understand that the actions or inaction of yesterday has ramifications. People, racetracks will cut race days. I'm almost certain of that. There'll be collateral damage to places like NYRA, Yonkers, and Monticello. And purses will be smaller. And breeders will have less money and have less incentive to breed in New York. It goes up and down the line, and there's a lot of money involved, and this is going to hurt a lot of people.
But Chairman, isn't the racing industry before this, and this is of course like just another chink in the armor, before this we were talking about problems in Saratoga. I was talking about it with all sorts of people over the summer. Isn't it time just to overhaul the whole racing industry in New York?
Well, that may be the case, but the funny part is the Saratoga meet is a success. Where racing gets into a
less so than it had been in the past.
Not really. Last year was pretty much an even, and nationally Saratoga is considered a jewel of a meet, where everyone else is, Monmouth tried to outdo Saratoga last year, and frankly they failed. So that when we do it right, we do it right. When government, particularly when the legislature gets involved in writing laws that I could put your viewers to sleep and talk about how OTBs get paid based on what time a race is shown in what time zone, based on reward numbers from 1978. It would drive you insane to read these laws. But it's all about keeping everyone whole from the old days. The old days are over. And if people want to send out a marker, they ended yesterday. Each entity in racing can and should survive on their own merit and stop worrying about other people paying your bills.
So do you not agree that the regional and suburban OTBs might actually have a beef? That they said, well, we want in on this action. Why are you restructuring New York City OTB? Yes, they're bankrupt, we understand, but we're hurting too. We'd like some help.
I have two comments on that. Number one, the regional OTBs for years have been told to consolidate things, to do efficiencies. New York City OTB had started doing that already. They can consolidate their tote platforms. They can consolidate their internet platforms. They can consolidate their TV platform. They don't do that because they all want to have all the toys and bells and whistles, and they can be more efficient doing it. That's number one. Number two, New York City OTB had filed for bankruptcy, okay? And I saw, based on my Capital Tonight iPhone app that I use regularly,
I did not pay this man for that plug.
One of your guests last night said, well, you know, there was no evidence that OTB was really going belly up and that had been called before. Well, we're the professional auditors on this. My agency has to audit just like you would a bank. We're the regulator. We had them cash negative December 31st, and we ordered them to set up a closure plan. Had people asked us...
Well, but they had threatened to close their doors before,
there's a
and they had
them
been...
threatening and us telling them they have to.
So
That's
the
a big
last time
difference.
wasn't real?
I think the last time they were close to real, and they wanted to get enough time to right the ship. And obviously, even when the gun was to people's head, they didn't have enough
But
time to
the
right the
danger
ship.
of crying wolf makes people think you're less credible. That's the problem.
I don't disagree. The only action we took was forcing them to a closure plan, and we did that about a week ago.
Okay. You used to be a member of the Senate, actually. You were a member of the Senate from Queens. What you saw yesterday in the chamber, what did that make you feel about your former colleagues in the Democratic majority, almost probably in the minority now?
I don't cast aspersions on anyone. I think that people have to vote their own conscience. What I was amazed at was that there were people on both sides of the aisle that sort of didn't get what was going on and didn't quite understand or profess not to understand that this was the only last chance. The assembly's gone. They're not coming back. And if you wanted to fix the problem, there was no, like, putting in another bill. There was no, like, we'll get to it next Tuesday. This was it.
Yeah, but Greg Rayburn actually told me last night, and then we're talking to the president of the New York City OTB, that you can turn the lights back on. I mean, it's not sort of dead and you threw it in the garbage and you can't reopen it. If they came to some kind of deal, there's time yet.
There is a problem here. There's a bankruptcy court
Right.
action, and there's a judge, and his patience, I think, is wearing a little thin.
Right.
The doors are closed. The money's being refunded. If people want to check our website, they can find out how they get their tickets. If they're up here and have New York City OTB tickets that they're keeping, that they want to cash in, they can, or if they have an account. But basically, the place is closed.
But when you were in the Senate, and it didn't work this way. I mean, generally, actually, Joe Bruno, the majority leader, former now, has caught a lot of flack for not bringing things to the floor until he knew that they were going to pass with 32 votes. Now we have entered this new brave world, if you will, where rank and file members have been empowered in part because of this razor-thin majority, and things come to the floor and fail all the time and get yanked back. I mean, we haven't really seen that before.
Well, it's a change in the political dynamic, but what the governor has asked us to do is to try and keep the business afloat right now, and that's, you know, what happens on the floor of the Senate, I have to deal with the consequences of.
So in your estimation, there is no possibility that they could come back sometime between now and the end of December and work something out?
I guess anything is possible, but it is extraordinarily unlikely at this point that would happen, both between the fact that you couldn't get people to agree knowing that this vote was going to happen. And you can't. It's very hard to get the assembly back. So I don't know how this plays out in a good place right now.
And nobody's talking about any of that. And nobody's talking about negotiations being restarted.
I think it's really difficult at this point. I don't know that anyone is or isn't talking about it. We've done what we have to do on my end. You know, we're not the legislature, we're the regulator, and we're trying to keep the balls in the air. And that's the thing we have to do now to try and keep the industry whole. You know, New York City OTB opened in April 1971. John Lindsay made the first bet at the former New York Central ticket windows in Grand Central Station, a adaptive reuse, if you will, of an old technology. Let that be a lesson to racing. We have to have our folks like Saratoga Harness does a great job of this, Tioga does a great job of this, of making it an entertainment experience on track. And the OTBs can market themselves on their own. And this whole thing about people owing each other money, it's important to some extent, but it can't be the be-all and end-all.
But will we see a consolidation going forward where everybody's under the same roof, that we don't have a regional system anymore?
I am afraid that if we have less race dates and some of the consequences of yesterday, that we will see more OTBs in trouble. And again, I hope out of that trouble we have a new paradigm and they do start to consolidate stuff. Otherwise, we're going to see them fail.
I just want to, in closing, briefly ask you about your future. Are you going to be asking Governor-elect Cuomo to remain on?
Well, I would love to remain on. I have a 6-year term on the board. The governor chooses the new chairman. If there is a new chairman, I'd love to stay, but I'm proud to be a member of the Racing and Wagering Board and working on problems with thoroughbred racing and charitable gaming and Indian gaming. When Indian gaming gets very complicated at times. It's a very challenging job, and I enjoy doing it. But I hope that the new governor, and I'm pretty confident, we're high school classmates, that he will look at this holistically and try and help us find holistic solutions, because the way it's gone right now, as you say, that the whole industry's kind of been at loggerheads, but not just in New York, nationally. Problems are happening in Maryland, Florida, California.
And any interest in returning to the Senate?
In returning to the Senate, not right now. No, my state senator, Jose Peralta, is doing a good job.
Okay, well, I want to thank you very much, John Sabini, for joining us this evening.
Thank you.